Welcome back to Good Better Broker as we bring in Andrew Chavez. He is the National Director of Sales Development with U Mortgage, and he is based in Springfield, Missouri. Andrew, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Justin. It's always a pleasure coming to UWM, and this is my first time sitting down with you, so super excited to get into it.
Yeah, we are excited to have you here. And a bit about you in your role with U Mortgage, which is somewhat of a new role. So congratulations to you, on this appointment. And what you do is you partner with branch managers and provide sales strategy and training programs to help the branches and the loan originators grow. And a big part of your background, in addition to your experience in the mortgage industry, is the fact that you were in the military. And not just that, you were a Green Beret for 9 years, 2 deployments to Afghanistan. You were behind enemy lines. And as you told me, speaking different languages at times. So as we kick off the conversation, Andrew, I got to ask you, how did that experience in the military help you become a leader in the mortgage industry?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love telling the story because, like, you said I'm from Springfield, Missouri. 100% true. Small town, 200,000 people. I'm 5'11", 190, like nothing special physically. I went and ran with Tyler Hodgson this morning. Great runner. And I was sucking. Like nothing, just an average guy, like second generation immigrant, like, from a small town. And I was able to achieve these things. One of those being a Green Beret. And, it all kind of boils down to like just being really disciplined. And so in this new role, it's setting different strategies and different programs. But, we talked about it a little bit before. It's like, hey, if you can just get these consistent activities and find ways to motivate your sales force, really be a force multiplier. And that's what we were as Green Berets. That's what I want to do here is be a force multiplier. I want to share everything that, our branch was doing before to, average 4 or 5 loans per loan officer with loan officers that were brand new, and really just share all that knowledge, really just give back because it's a passion of mine. I enjoy it. I've been doing it a long time. So yeah.
We're going to get into more of what you're actually doing to teach and help develop the LOs at U Mortgage. But I know the question on everyone's mind who is listening to this is, how does a guy go from being a Green Beret to working as a mortgage loan originator?
That's an amazing question. So, when I was in Special Forces, it is, like I said, I did 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan. I did over 200 halo jumps with such, you're jumping out between 15 and 20,000 feet, crashing into sides of mountains. It's very tough on your body. So I was about, 7 years in the military, coming off my second combat deployment. And I started looking around. I said, if I want to do 20 years and get this pension, I'm probably going to end up in a wheelchair or dead. Like, you're running high risk missions, you're jumping out of planes, and I wanted a family. Like I knew, like I didn't have a wife, didn't have kids then, but I was like, I'm still young and I still want a family. So, I made the decision. I said, okay, hey, I'm going to do one more, re-enlistment, and then I'm going to get out. I'm going to try my hand in the civilian sector, try to take all of these tools and resources that the military, because the military pays a couple $1 million to develop a Green Beret. And so, I was like, hey, if they paid all this money, I'm going to see what I can go do in the civilian world. So, I started a small tax and accounting firm in 2014, I believe. I was still in the military, and I was like, great margins. I'm going to, try to do this as a side hustle. So I would actually take leave from the military, fly back and help prepare taxes during tax season. So, I kind of started this, I want to start businesses and stuff. And then as I was getting close to getting out of the military, I had a guy working for me, and he said, hey, everyone's calling us for their tax returns because they need mortgages. And he was like, you won't believe how much money people are making in mortgages. And I go, how much? He's like $2,000. We're in Missouri. Like, I didn't know what yield spread was at the time. I'm just like, $2,000? We're charging like $200 for tax returns. That sounds amazing. I've come to find out you make a lot more than that on a loan. But, to us, I was like, yeah, file the company registration. We'll get a license and we'll try this loan thing. After I get out, I think, $2,000 a pop, close 5 or 10 of those and I can live okay, And so he did. He went, he filed all the paperwork, got a broker license. UWM was our first lender that we signed up with, connected with an AE, and we had no idea what we were doing. So yeah, that's how kind of I was like, hey, I don't want to be in the military 20 years. Like, I want to have a family. And that really drove me to take action and say, hey, here's a plan. And it didn't exactly follow that plan, but it's part of the story.
And it's a great story. And I admire the fact that you were thinking about the big picture and really weighing your priorities in life, and not just in terms of your career and really evaluating the things that were most important to you. And obviously it's led to some great things. Speaking of, there are a couple of things I want to ask you about And these dovetail into, your teachings, in what you're doing now in developing these branches and these originators. I want you to explain to our listeners what brilliance in the basics and trooping the line mean and why they are so important to success in this business.
Yeah. So, when I came in the business, I had no mortgage industry knowledge, didn't know how to run AUS, didn't know you should do a hard pull. I was being taught by a kind of a newer AE as well. And she was fabulous. She helped grow our account, but she didn't know and I didn't know. And so we're looking at this I was like, how am I going to get these 5 to 10 loans a month that I need, that I was planning on to live? And I said, hey, I need leads, right? Okay, great, Andrew. Mind blowing. You need leads to close loans, right? Everyone knows that. But when you look at how loan officers attack the market, yes, they understand they need leads, but they don't do the consistent activities to get those leads. So, brilliance in the basics. Hey, just find a simple activity. Mine was open houses and model homes. I said, there's a ton of open houses going on. I'm going to call. I'm going to go hang out with realtors. I'm going to be in the trenches with them. I'm going to show them my value. I'm going to be able to pre-approve borrowers right there, and then just be brilliant at the 1003. Hey, we learned guidelines. When we first started out, we had nobody to teach us the business, and so our poor compliance lady, she was like, guys, you need to read there's 5 guides. It's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the 4000.1, USDA, and VA pamphlet. And so, I call that being brilliant in the basics. In the military, we have ARs and FMs, Army regulations and field manuals. They tell you what to do, right? They give you a game plan. Here's our SOP for this. And so really those guides, those mortgage guides, I viewed like an Army publication. I said, oh, here's all the answers. And this is pretty black and white. We just need to learn these. So, being brilliant in the basics, I think is really knowing the 1003 really well, and then just doing basic tasks really well over and over. It's that consistency. We talked about the podcast. We're 73 episodes in. That's amazing. Most podcasts don't last past 5, right? And that consistency over time, it's going to grow, and you're going to grow your business. So that's kind of what brilliance in the basics means to me. And it's worked really well because, we've taken loan officers with an average of less than 3 years experience, and we're averaging 4.3 loans closed per month. So I like data. There's some people that say, hey, false profits were, created in 2020 and 2021. 100% agree. My first year was in 2021. My first full year, I did 256 transactions at 65 million as a brand new broker. I love data. And when I say, okay, hey, how'd this, normal guy from Missouri do it? It's brilliance in the basics. It's saying, I need leads. I'm going to create a plan, and then I'm just going to do it over and over and over. And it worked. And then now training loan officers on that, there's loan officers have been in the industry 5-10 years, and they're just can't be that easy. I'm like, it is. I did it brand new with no mortgage experience. And the only thing is I was just consistent. It's the same thing with working out. People say, well, I'm overweight. I'm this. I'm like, okay, well, how often do you work out? The same thing. You want to lose weight. You have a goal. You have to put in the daily work. And in the mortgage industry, I see a lot of loan officers that are only working 20, maybe 15 hours, if that, in the industry, and saying, well, why don't I have any leads? Well, are you being brilliant in the basics? Are you going to your open house? Are you going to the networking event? So, to me, brilliance in the basics, it's a mindset. It's just saying, hey, I'm going to get up every single day and do the basics really well. I tell this story. It's hey, in special forces, I mentioned we're jumping out of planes, we're doing cool stuff, but you know what 99% of our time is done? Training on the basics. Can you shoot from 5 meters? Can you shoot from 25 meters? Can you patrol? Can you, just all these basic tasks, can you read a map? Right. And so people think oh yeah, you guys, are always doing all this cool training. No, I'm on a flat range somewhere, wishing I was on vacation. So, I kind of took that same mindset. And so that's really what brilliance in the basics mean. And then trooping the line is a principle we used in the military. So in the military, you have a patrol base. So you're on a mission. You need to shut down for the night. People need to sleep. You need your 2 or 3 hours of sleep. So we form a patrol base, and it's a circle. And essentially you have priorities of work that you do within that circle. Cause you probably just came off a patrol. So you need to clean your weapons first. You need to get your defenses set in. Right. And so trooping the line is something that leaders do inside a patrol base and on the mission. And what that means is a leader is going by to each individual person and saying, do you need help with something? Right. And if they do need help with something, they're teaching in that moment. They're coaching in that moment. I'm not going to clean your rifle for you, but hey, let me show you how to disassemble it if you don't know. So trooping the line to me is a concept that I used in our broker shop and then our branch. And then I try to teach. And that's if you're a leader, you need to be trooping your line. You need to be talking to your loan officers twice a week, Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday. If you do that, and that also pairs to brilliance in basics. There's a lot of broker owners, branch managers that don't talk to each one of their LOs twice a week. Meaningful. They're defensive. LO calls them, hey, I got this file problem. Okay, here's how you solve it. Here's the guideline. Whereas you need to have those offensive communication, right? Those 1 to 2, like, hey, are you scheduling open houses? Are you cold calling your agents? Are you doing networking events? All these things, you need to have those offensive conversations, and trooping the line allows you to do that, right? You're stopping by. Hey, Justin, like, what are you working on today? Do you need help with anything? What are you doing this weekend? Like, are you doing open houses? Like, what did your last weekend look like? So brilliance in the basics and trooping the line is like 2 principles that, I took from the military, installed into mortgage, and it just worked out well. But, really, you can look at any area of your life and you can say, hey, if I just apply those same things, I can succeed in any area. So
yeah. I mean, a couple of things that come to mind for me after listening to what you just said. In life, I think a lot of times we tend to overcomplicate the path to success.
Absolutely.
When you were talking about brilliance in the basics, it's like we're always thinking about all the different things we need to do to achieve success in whatever it is we're after. And from what you said, sometimes it's just 1 or 2 really important things.
Yep.
And then to your point about consistency, in the society we live in, it's always like, oh, what's the shiny, flashy new thing, right? People are attracted.
The life hack.
Yes, exactly. and I think that consistency tends to get undervalued.
Yep.
And you obviously don't look at it that way. So I love the fact that you have taken this mindset and applied it to this business, and now you're helping other mortgage brokers do some of the same things. I think you brought up the guidelines when you were talking when you were talking before. This is how you learned the mortgage business.
Yep.
And this is also how you teach the mortgage business. Mm-hmm. Why is that your approach?
Well, it goes back to the military approach. Like, if you want to be a good LO, you need knowledge, and then you also need those daily sales activities. But the knowledge portion, like, you're not going to last in this industry. Like, awesome. You got some leads and then nothing, you're not going to last in the industry. Like, realtors will be like, okay, great. Like, he was slick talking, he was this, he was that, but he didn't know how to structure the loan, or, whatever the case might be. So the guideline has the majority of the answers, but it takes time to understand how to read guideline and how to search guideline. So if you can teach an LO how to read guideline and search guideline, I mean, as a branch manager, broker owner, you just freed up weekends, you freed up date nights with the wife, you freed up so much time. So I don't get frustrated like when I have one of those coaching opportunities, because I'm like, man, this is saving me a Sunday afternoon picnic time because an LO needs to get a pre-approval out. Like, I'm going to show them how to search first, read guideline, search it. And then if they don't know, if they need that, okay, hey, I'm reading this, but I don't understand it. Okay, hey, here's how I've seen this before in past files. But like, the guides are there and they have like the majority of all answers, and very few loan officers use them. I saw it in the same thing in the military. We had ARs and FMs, like I said, Army regulations, field manuals, and the majority of soldiers don't study them. The good soldiers that were getting promoted fast and everything, they study those. You need to know what to do in certain situations, and the guide gives that to you. So that's how we train.
The other thing I wanted to mention, and this, resonated with me while you were discussing what trooping the line means, just the benefit of proactive communication.
Yep.
As a leader in this business, think about how most of us communicate these days via text. I mean, some people don't even answer their phones when you call. It's like, oh, hey, I called you. Yeah, I saw you call me, and I let it go straight to voicemail. You are very intentional, like you said, about having those interactions with your people twice a week. I mean, when you think about that, especially, like you said, the fact that you've taken all of these LOs with relatively, short experience in this business and made them highly productive, what do you think the role has been with just how closely you've been able to work with them?
I mean, communication is everything. Like Matt Ishbia, one of his favorite sayings of mine, or one of my favorite sayings of his, is like, communication is on the communicator, right? And so a lot of people and leaders say, I don't want to repeat myself, right? And as a leader, I think that, like, if you want a true successful message, you have to have repetition, right? And so finding those ways, and you have to have kind of like a tactical plan. One thing that Anthony Casa shared with me is like, he was like, hey man, like voice notes over iMessage save you a ton of time. And I started to know, like, man, Anthony sends me voice notes. I get a ton of information. I can save it. If there's call to actions in there, I can go back, I can read it. So that's one of those communication methods where it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take that and then I'm going to use that to do those communications. Because you're right, finding ways, especially unless you have a physical office, which we were very blessed to have a physical office, so it made communication much easier. But like, just being able to find those repetitive times where you can say, hey, audio message or something like that. So like my role in the communication is really just setting the repetitive messaging. Like we know we need to go out and do sales activities. Okay. So if you're an LO that likes open houses or you like doing cold calls or whatever it is that you like, that's going to be my messaging to you. Like you don't need to change your plan. You just need to do your plan.
I want to ask you how you go about getting buy-in, because you've got your pillars, if you will, brilliance in the basics and trooping the line. Yep. When you are working with a newer LO, someone with, maybe not even a year of experience, and you're trying to get them to that point where it starts to click for them.
Yep.
How do you go about convincing them that this is the right way to approach it?
To influence people, there's a few different ways. And so I try logical first, right? Because I'm like, hey, here is the data. If you do these sales activities, and we have a very defined game plan in U Mortgage for most of our loan officers, like if you do this and you do these activities, here's how many units you're going to close. And I try to explain kind of the mindset to it, because I said, hey, people know that they need leads, but they're not doing it. Well, people think they need loans where I don't think you need loans, right? In my model, I think you need friends, right? And so I teach that hey, if you want to get to the 5 units, so hey, I'm trying to get buy-in and stuff, right? Like you want to get 60 units a year, that's 5 units a month. So what do you need? You need to go find 5 friends that are realtors that are producing, between, $3 and $12 million somewhere in there. They're actively producing, or maybe they weren't actively, but they're now, like someone that's in there. Like if you have 5 friends, you're probably going to get about 5 units a month, like if they're actively producing on average, because you're going to pull some from outside of that. So, we really try to set that mindset of hey, go find friends, and just keep repeating that message.
See, I'm not even a mortgage loan originator, and my eyes lit up when I heard you say that. You're like, oh, all you need to achieve success in this business is 5 friends who are producing realtors. I mean, if it works on me, I can only imagine what it must feel like for somebody who's actually doing this as a career.
Yeah, when you reshape the goal that people are working towards, it makes it a lot simpler. So our strategy is I'm like, hey, you need to find partners that are aligned with you. Don't change who you are. If your community, I tell the story, if your community is, I like playing golf and I like Jesus. So, when I was LO, I was playing golf with a lot of my realtors, or I was serving in church with them. I found my community and I found my friends. And so when I explained that to people, and I did that on the Special Forces side, people were like, well, okay, yeah, Special Forces, you kick indoors, everything like that. I'm like, no, I was a Green Beret. We did something called unconventional warfare. That is building networks behind enemy lines. That's building relationships. That's making friends to win a war. Right. So isn't that kind of odd to think about? We're making friends to win a war. So when I looked at loans, I said, okay, I need to make friends to get loans. It's the same thing I did in the military, and it's worked out brilliantly because, one of our values here at U Mortgage is relationships over transactions. And I see that over and over in business and really in the mortgage industry. Most realtors and clients don't care what rate you're selling. They care about the relationship, right? And so when I looked at that and I said, if I'm going to spend my time, I'm going to go find 5 to 10 friends, and that's going to get me my 5 to 10 units a month. And I've taught that, and loan officer after loan officer that has executed that, there's not been a single failure, right? The people that don't do the activities, they fail.
I'm sitting here thinking about what your reaction could be if you had an LO come to you and say, you know what, Andrew, I can't convince this realtor to work with me. I think they don't like me. I just know what, no matter what I do. And then you could drop the, well, let me tell you a little story about what I did when I was behind enemy lines, literally becoming friends with somebody who was trained to want to kill me.
Yep.
I can only imagine, what, and not to say that you pull that card out, but it's just very fascinating to think about your background and your training and some of those principles and lessons that you're now able to impart onto people in the broker channel. It's really cool stuff. But I do want to ask you more about getting in front of those agents, and for these LOs. How do you recommend they approach finding those things? Like you said, for you, it's golf and church.
Yeah.
How do you recommend they go into those interactions with potential realtor partners to try and find the things that would work well for them?
Yeah. So our kind of how you think about, or how I think about how I need to build consistent business. I'm not depending on the next refi boom, is I need a way that I can spend time with a referral partner. I can follow up with them, give them my value proposition, and then you have to ask people for what you want. If I wanted to finance your home, I would ask you, hey, not directly, but I say, hey, when did you buy? Oh, you bought in 2021, you probably have a great rate, or oh, you bought in 2023. I'm going to find out that information. So if you think as an LO, I need to find a spot where I can have a first date, kind of. My perfect spot is open houses. If I was going to sell cars, I'd go to a car lot. Guess what they're selling at open houses? Like they're selling houses. So if that's where people that are walking in and realtors that want to be active, so I don't care if you're a realtor that hasn't produced, like if you're holding an open house, that's telling me you're doing an activity, and that's people that I want to partner with. So I like to do open houses or builder model homes because you get 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours with an agent and you get to see if you connect. And I tell loan officers, don't force it. If you guys don't get along, if you think they're weird or they think you're weird, that's okay. They're, like in our local market, there's 5,000 real estate agents. Like you need 5 to 10 friends that are actively producing. Now, out of the 5,000, you're probably looking at about 1,000 that are actively producing, but 5 out of 1,000, I mean, that's not, I like my odds on that. And so if you think about it like that, hey, you can cold call agents. I'm not a fan of it. I like to give. So like the open house things, like if you're giving first, if you're saying like, hey, let me come to the open house, I'm gonna bring drinks, I'm gonna bring snacks, I'm gonna bring marketing material, and I'm gonna help you get leads. That's giving first before you're asking for taking. So it just getting that open houses, networking groups. There's tons of like BNI groups and stuff like that. I would be in all of them. Hobbies, go play pickleball, go to the pool. Like there are ways that you can meet realtors, but you have to ask questions, right? Hey, what do you do? And you're just finding out. You're being curious. Good salesmen are really curious. So if you put yourself in these situations, you're curious. You can just kind of repeat that process over and over. But I like the open houses because it gets you there 2 hours. You follow up with the agent afterwards. You give them your value proposition. You say, hey, here's how you can refer to me. A lot of loan officers don't know how to ask for business. They're like, oh, I don't want to ask. Or they'll say, you got any leads for me? Like, how does that sound? Like, no, you need a way to coach and educate that agent because you want to show them the value of a lifelong partnership.
Yeah, so. I think it's a great point. Like if there's something that you want, you got to ask for it. It doesn't mean you're pushy or you're being overly aggressive.
Yeah.
You have to make it very clear to people because sometimes it isn't clear.
Correct.
Another recent guest that we had, a broker owner who also does some coaching, was talking to me about the importance of having a plan in this business, and how vital that is to success. In your mind, how much of success as a loan originator is simply knowing what you have to do on a daily basis?
I think it's everything. Because like the first step is like, you can't do everything, or you can't do daily activities without knowing what to do. So that's where it's like, I love open houses, but for loan officers that don't, like if social media is your thing and you're on, real estate investing, groups and you're adding value there, okay, that's your thing. Like you don't need to be extroverted. You can be introverted and succeed in this industry, but it still takes activities, and you have to put together a plan that fits who you are. And if you can do that, put together the plan and then just execute. A bad plan is better than no plan. And a bad plan with action is better than a good plan with inaction. So make a plan and then go execute. And if you mess it up, refine the plan.
Sounds simple enough, but hopefully more people will start doing it. What about framing your success, Andrew? I want to ask you about that because those are all that's another part of your teaching strategy.
Yeah. So I guess framing for the success is like, I like to keep everything very simple. And as long as like I'm doing something or I am helping someone else do something, I feel good about it. Like people don't need perfection. And I think people shoot for perfection so much, and we should strive for excellence. But it really just like, I tell people, and I relate it to the gym all the time, like just start walking. Like you don't have to go out and deadlift 500 pounds. Like just do something. And so like the framing of the success is like, hey, do something and then apply perspective. We've all have sad stories. We've all been through tough situations. Like every day I wake up breathing is an amazing day. Because I spent a lot of time in Afghanistan. I saw how those kids grew up. I saw, the trauma of war. So now being here in the United States, raising 2 young boys and everything, to apply a little perspective, I'm like, I have bad moments, but I've never had a bad day after, getting out of the military because like I'm blessed. I wake up breathing. So if we could apply that, it's like, okay, it's not that terrible. I got to cold call 10 agents today and try to get some open houses. At least I'm not getting shot at, which is another one of my favorite terms.
That is amazing perspective. By the way, to what you were telling us at the beginning of the conversation about, jumping out of planes, I was going to ask you, do you ever get stressed? And I know that now you're developing and teaching, but when you were originating, did you ever get stressed out or nervous when you were waiting for that CTC to come in, or were you like, I think I've done a few things in my life that are a little more stressful than this?
So stress is just pressure, like that external pressure, and like how you deal with it. So I wouldn't say I felt stress, but I definitely felt pressure during those situations. That's completely normal. What you do with that pressure can turn to stress, or you can problem solve. So like, maybe there was times where I was stressed. I'm sure there was. That's completely normal. Like I was doing a lot of loans at the time. I'm sure I was stressed, but like to the perspective of like, oh, someone's going to die over this. Like it just helped me every single day coming out of that. And it helps the people that we work with, because I'm just like, hey, I can tell my story and say, hey, we have an amazing opportunity today. All you have to do is wake up and call a few agents. Like it's not that bad. Like you have an amazing opportunity and you get to make pretty good money doing it. So
not bad. One thing that we didn't touch on quite as much as I wanted to, and you talked about, the process, but I want to ask you about a repeatable process and also repetitive messaging. Tell us how those aspects of what you do work, Andrew.
Yeah, so the repeatable process, and I can delve into it a little bit if you'd like on kind of what I teach, but it's a very structured working towards that relationship. So I said everything that we do is working towards friends. So if there's loan officers that are out there that want to copy it and say, okay, great. So like on Monday, we have everything planned out where you're calling your realtors that you were just at open houses with. Tuesday, you're doing your database or your pre-approval calls. Wednesday, you're doing your status updates. Thursday, you're doing your pre-approvals. Friday, you're doing your VIPs. There's other systems just like it, right? And everyone has their own little twist on it. And I think that like you don't have to use my plan, but if you do that and you just do it over and over, like the math is, if you need that 5 friends, you're not going to convert 100% of everybody. Like we're both really cool guys, but not everyone loves us, right? So it's like you look at like the average LO and you're like, okay, if you can get in front of 15 to 20 agents and you can convert 2 or 3 of them every month by, spending a couple hours with them, and then you repeat that process, well, then at the end of a year, you're looking at 20 to 25 agents that are actively sending you business. But you have to get to that 15 to 20 touches so you can convert that 2 to 3. And that goes into that repeatable process of like, hey, you just got to go out and do the activities. The repetitive messaging has to be from leaders saying, hey, supporting that. Like we know the data shows if you do these activities, it will equal this result. And it sounds so simple as we're sitting here talking to it, but like that's what it takes to be successful in this industry as a leader. And I saw it in the military, I saw it in the mortgage. Like you just have to repeat yourself over and over, and you can't get frustrated, right? You can have bad moments, but you can't have bad days. You can't be like, Justin, I can't believe you asked that question the 50th time. Like, you know what? I didn't explain it right the 49th time. So guess what? We're doing some over the shoulder coaching. Like I'm going to break it down really easy. So that repetitive messaging as a leader, that's your job. Like that's why I saw in the military. It's like drill sergeants. They say the same thing over and over and over. And then you come out with a really good private sometimes that listens really well and executes really well and can achieve mission success.
Well, one thing that the military and the mortgage business have in common is acronyms, right? There are all kinds of them. And one that just came to mind for me after everything that you said is KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. I mean, if more of us just adhere to that, think about how much better and happier we could be. So you're doing great things. And just, to hear your story and to learn about the ways that you've taken your past experiences and built your own career as a broker, and now to see you developing and growing these branches and originators with you mortgage. It's very cool to see and very admirable. So we appreciate you joining us and sharing some of your insights with our audience. Andrew Chavez with you mortgage. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you for watching Good Better Broker and helping us support independent mortgage brokers everywhere. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to be notified about new videos, as well as your preferred podcast platform for a new episode every other Tuesday.